Story 1. When they try to one-up everyone's problems. I was venting to a friend about my dad's health issues, and she immediately jumped in with, "Well, my dad, can we just acknowledge someone's struggle without making it a competition?" Story 2. Well, a coworker this morning made a joke about a guy being interviewed whose wife died in the Washington, D.C. plane crash. The guy being interviewed said he had dinner ready at home and went to pick up his wife from the airport, then found out what happened. The coworker said, "Well, he's happy because now there's leftovers, haha." I didn't think I could have had less respect for this person to begin with, but he found a way. Story 3. Sex offenders, including pedophiles and rapists, are often described as having an illness they can't help. In my opinion, it is equivalent to murder, so any kind of sex offender. Story 4. Two-faced people. Being nice to someone's face, then saying negative things once their back is turned is instant disrespect to me. Say what you feel, or at least don't pretend. Story 5. People who hit their kids or their pets. Nothing says, "I'm a great person," like hurting a creature that can't defend themselves, whom you're meant to be caring for and loving. Don't bother trying to defend it. Nothing will change my mind. Story 6. When they interrupt someone telling a story in a group of people, then never go back to that person to finish their story, and that person just sits there embarrassed with a half story just hanging there. I don't know, it really gets me. Story 7. No return greeting. It is not difficult to say good morning back. Service workers being rude for no reason. People being rude to service workers for no reason. Story 8. When they have no respect for people working in restaurants or similar positions. When they talk negatively behind other people's backs but can't take it when others do it. Story 9. I had a friend who was single and a friend who was engaged. My friend's fiancé was very friendly, I suppose you could say. I was speculating about her for a few months just based on the way she really went out of her way to talk to other guys and her lack of respect for their personal space. To no surprise, it ended up coming out that she was cheating on her fiancé, my friend, with my single friend for quite some time. We're talking a full-blown relationship. Going on dates, she met my friend's parents, a sex life, phone calls all day, the whole 9 yards. So I suppose that's something that just totally made me lose respect for my single friend and the very little amount of respect I previously had for my other friend's fiancé. Story 10. They had the money to spend $10,000 on treatment for their son but chose not to. Sadly, because of that decision, their son eventually had to have his leg amputated. Story 11. At this stage, Trump support requires profound ignorance, profound cruelty, or both. Whatever the case, that person is to be dealt with on a necessity-only basis. Story 12. Toppers, the ones that have to top anything and everything that anyone has done. If you went over the Niagara Falls in a barrel, they swam up the Niagara Falls. Story 13. I'm an old white guy. Whenever someone throws down some "Make America Great Again" nonsense talking point expecting me to pick it up because I'm an old white guy, I know that my time of speaking with them has ceased. Story 14. Astrology, ghosts, spirits, mediums, anything like that. If you tell me that we're compatible because Leos and Virgos are natural-born companions, I'm out. Story 15. When they can't take a joke, especially when they are constantly poking fun at other people. If you can't take a joke, then don't joke around with people. Story 16. Talking negatively about their friends. If they will speak poorly about a mutual friend behind their back, then they will speak poorly about me behind my back. Once I hear that, I no longer respect or trust them and will not share anything with them that I don't want the rest of the world to know. Story 17. Being knee-jerk judgmental. As in the, "Oh, that guy single thing they don't disagree with. He's a total asshole, don't give him the time of day" brand of judgmental. Story 18. When they have zero respect for animals, life in general, or the environment. My husband and I went on vacation to the Caribbean and met another couple with whom we spent some time. We were walking along the beach, enjoying the views, and there was a beautiful conch. We were all admiring it and were in awe of its beauty. This man immediately picked it up and said, "Oh my God, I'm bringing this back home for my daughter." We noticed that the snail was still in the conch, and we all figured he'd be a normal human being and put the conch back in the water. He began to rip the poor snail out of its home, tearing it apart and killing it. We went home and never hung out with them again. Story 19. Being unkind is the one thing that sums up who they are as a person in general. I'm not talking only about big things like bullying someone at work or school, but also small things like shoving other people on the train, littering, interrupting people, and walking ahead of people when you are in a group. You do not care whether they can keep up with your pace or not. Story 20. Still being a supporter of Donald Trump. If they are still in the cult, then I know they are either racist, misogynistic, homophobic, transphobic, really, really, really dumb, a terrible human being, not actually a Christian, all of the above. Story 21. Refusing to even entertain the idea that they might be wrong about something. Ignoring or disregarding anything that would even remotely resemble contradiction or criticism. Story 22. If they quote TikTok as a source for anything, it can certainly be the start. See an idea there, then double-check and research further. But almost any time a sentence starts or ends with, "I saw it on TikTok," it's utter nonsense. Story 23. They complain about money but somehow find it to buy new gadgets, car accessories, sports equipment, and get food delivered for lunch every day. I'm sitting right next to him at work. Story 24. Littering and being rude to service industry workers or homeless folks. I'll loudly call people out for it on the spot. 2. Left a date once because the guy was super condescending to our server. She looked like she wasn't even old enough to drink, and he called her stupid to her face because she asked to confirm how he wanted the meat cooked. I confronted him, went up front and told the manager about him, and paid for my food that hadn't left the kitchen yet so I could take it home to eat. Story 25. Calling anyone they disagree with a Nazi or a fascist is a low-level form of ad hominem attack and makes the words meaningless. Rather than arguing their point in a logical way, they resort to childish name-calling. The amazing thing is they honestly believe that when they call someone a Nazi or fascist, they have pulled some sort of trump card that allows them to automatically win the argument. Story 26. If they smoke close to others, smoking on a private balcony in an apartment building qualifies as close to others, because the smoke can easily make it into people's apartments if they have their windows open. Story 27. People who listen to anyone as long as they tell them what they want to hear. In the last few days, people are suddenly fans of Holocaust denier Candace Owens because they are aligned with her celebrity gossip. Story 28. Hi all. I'm 42 and work in a small team department. Recently, we got a new manager, but I'm struggling with how unprofessional she is. She has a habit of quoting other people's opinions as a way to give instructions, rather than giving clear feedback herself. For example, she'll say things like, "This person says your performance isn't good," or "Someone else thinks the system isn't up to standard," but never takes ownership of these points herself. It's always about what others think, and it makes things feel really uncertain. She will quote, "So and so tells me that the system is not updated, hence I need to change. So and so said she doesn't know how to do her work. I cannot believe she has been working so long and doesn't know how to do her work. So and so tells me you don't know how to do your email. Hence, I will ask you to learn and practice email more." So we all end up arguing with each other about why such information was given to her. But none of us know where or who she got this information from. We tried to confront her, but she doesn't want to hear our explanation. We're all pretty unhappy with her leadership, and a meeting with her and the director is coming up. But I recently saw 2 of my colleagues having a private meeting with her. Now, I'm unsure who I can trust. Everyone seems to have their own agenda. I'm wondering if I should speak up during the meeting, or just keep quiet. How should I approach the conversation with her and the director? Any advice would be really appreciated. Story 29. If they keep making the same mistakes at work regularly, not once in a blue moon, which can happen to anyone for whatever reason, and then proceed to whatever without actively trying to understand what they did wrong and correcting the bad habit that led to the repetition of said mistakes, and when you happen to tell them something about it, they get annoyed and wave it away, needless to say, I gave up. Talk to them only when necessary and just let them be. Story 30. When they don't respect your boundaries and tell you that you're just acting pricey. And also, when they start an argument just because your opinion differs from theirs. Like, why is it so tough for people to understand everyone is built differently? Story 31. not understand that their opinions are just opinions and not a fact. A lot of times these people are like, no, it's a fact, not an opinion because blah, blah, blah. They just look dumb when they do that. Story 32. Being an asshole and pretending it's normal, or that people who are nice are somehow the bad ones. I've met a lot of seriously unsafe people like this. Story 33. Rude to customer service employees. It doesn't take much effort to just be a normal, polite person. And with so many videos out there ending people's jobs because they're screaming about not getting a ranch at McDonald's, the bar is very low. Also, if you're polite, people are more likely to help you out. Story 34. Being financially irresponsible or illiterate. I knew a guy who commissioned me for some work and who could not understand the basics of his credit card debt and what a minimum payment was. I explained what that payment was, and he was so happy that he had $30 left to spend on weed rather than pay down some of his credit card debt. I lost what little respect I had for him that day. The commission itself was a mess, and I lost a great deal of respect for anyone who still associated with him. Story 35. Acting as if the rules do not apply to them. I had a neighbor who seemed like a good person until we were at a birthday party at the neighborhood park, and they started smoking right in front of a no smoking sign. I instantly lost all respect for them and all interest in supporting their small business. Story 36. Muttering one's own language when frustrated to hide a curse or bad word against someone. For context, English isn't my first language, but I find it completely rude to say things others won't understand. Story 37. The way they talk to and treat their children should always be positive. Discipline is not the same as verbal, emotional, or physical abuse. Story 38. Trump might not be a good guy, but at least he's doing something about those illegals. Then I got to come home and hear about Trump sending migrants into Guantanamo Bay. Story 39. When someone has the attitude of, well, they never did anything to me, they may excuse poor treatment of others simply because it wasn't directed towards them. Story 40. Littering, racism, sexism, and people who have no empathy for individuals in less fortunate situations than themselves. Some people get treated unfairly in life even though they tried. Story 41. People who dislike children and make posts about disliking them. I don't want children of my own. I don't care to be around children. But to literally hate innocent little people and to post about it is just weird. Story 42. Treating any kind of service staff poorly or talking down on homeless folks. Not only do I know that they have probably never struggled, but that, even if they did, it did not teach them a lick of compassion. And the opposite is also true. If I see someone go out of their way to make things easier for service workers or are generous even without having a lot to give themselves, I majorly respect those people. Story 43. Racism, bigotry, bullying behavior, and overall disrespectful behavior in general, which unfortunately makes me have nearly zero respect for a large percentage of the people that I encounter. Oh, and chewing with your mouth open or loudly. Shame on you and your parents for raising a heathen. Story 44. Entitlement. Nothing shatters respect faster than the expectation that others should cater to your whims. That clash between arrogance and reality is like watching a toddler demand a toy. Humorous until you realize they haven't grown up. Story 45. Every now and then in life, I meet someone who is openly and insistently hostile for no reason and is smug about it. That's what makes me lose respect for someone. Story 46. If they are rude to people they disagree with or start assuming things about them, it's very obvious sometimes if someone is just missing key information or is ignorant. But just assuming you know things about them, rather than inviting them to elaborate on their point of view, is really lazy. It encourages them to assume things about you in return. Pretty soon, you are both just arguing with imaginary people rather than trying to understand one another. Story 47. Littering, smoking, vaping, taking hard recreational drugs, alcoholism, ignorance, being a terrible driver, being rude to other people, having the vocabulary of a teenager past the age of 25, being neglectful or abusive to children or animals, having a negative attitude towards our environment, having no interest to educate or better themselves in whatever their interests are, a lot of things really. Story 48. Ill-treating people at a lower status than them, such as waiters and janitors, to name a couple, is extremely repulsive behavior and really shows someone's character. Story 49. People often place others on pedestals, such as politicians, priests, police officers, or wealthy individuals, assuming that because of who they are, they must be moral and upstanding. Story 50. Being a tough guy. I used to think tough guys were cool, but now, at my age, whenever I see a tough guy in real life, on television, or in a movie, I just think, what an immature loser. Grow up, loser. Story 51. I knew this one guy and thought he was a pretty nice guy. Well, one day I stopped by his place. He had another friend there and was babysitting an infant. Not sure if it was for a friend or sister he was babysitting for. Well, those two guys pulled out a joint and started smoking with the infant in the room. I'm thinking to myself, wow, this is messed up. I gave an excuse to leave and never talked to that guy again. By the way, I had quit smoking about a year or so earlier. Weed just doesn't agree with me, and I'm not against someone smoking weed, but in front of an infant, just wow.